You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humbled host, Herut, and I got my partner in crime, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Peace, brother. Never better.
Good deal. Man, we're out here at episode 13. It's interesting, and the topic we're gonna hit today, it just kind of hit me, 13, and we'll get into that later. But before we move any further, I want to remind you that this episode and this podcast is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group at Push It Forward on Instagram. That's PUSHITFWD. And you can find us online as well at the website pushitforward.com, spelled just like our Instagram handle. Brother Rod, tell them how you can get it in touch with Calipurusha Astrology.
You can hit me up on IG at Shechem Ra, or you can find me on Facebook as well on FB at Shechem Ra, both the same name.
Indeed. So we got another good response. I think we got another classic, in the chamber with last episode. We touched on the economy and kind of, what to expect, in the very near future. How you feel about the impact of that episode?
I got some good feedback from it, definitely. Folks are a little probably apprehensive to really say anything because nobody wants their pocket to be hurt. And, I've got a few people that said some things, but, these things are great to really allow time to tell, and so, time will be the test and judge of any valid astrologer's predictions, and we always kind of sit on pins and needles, if you will, just to try to make sure that we covered all bases and make sure we dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's. But in fact, I made a prediction a while ago. Everything as the chickens have come home to roost, and we'll actually talk about that today. So, but I thought it was very, very good, positive feedback from those people that did speak up.
Indeed. We're going to hit some more. I mean, today's show is kind of in that same vein of things. We like to, we like the theory. We like to talk about, the celebrities and all those different things as well. But, both of us utilize astrology in a very practical way in our daily lives, how we plan, our careers and, how we go about our relationships and different things like that. So hitting these type of topics, where we get more into like, the economy and different things that impact, pretty much everybody that's, alive in these, in these spaces right now, are very important. It's just to show the practicality of astrology. It's not just some, fun, party trick, type of thing that you get your astrologer out and start making little predictions that's interesting and stuff like that. It's really, a method to that madness. So with that in mind, we had another show planned today, but in light of recent news, I think we, it makes more sense to really touch on this topic. And I guess if unless you've been under a rock, everybody is pretty much, very much aware that, politically in the United States, they've decided to move forward with, trying to impeach Mr. Trump, right? And I guess when was it? A couple years ago, Brother Rod, you made a post, in this vein about this particular time, based on the transit and different things like that that's going on.
Yeah, brother, I did. In October 2017, it's on my Facebook page. You have to go back a little ways, but I made some very stark and quite interesting predictions around Mr. President Trump here. And not only Mr. Trump, but just in general with the United States and what's going to happen here in the next, or what would happen within the next few years. And 85 to 90% of what I've said has come to pass. And so, you all definitely want to go back and read that post. I won't read it verbatim here because it's already out there and it's there for you to see. But I said there would be issues with foreign policy and with regards to trade. Well, you can clearly see that's a major thing going on right now. I made a prediction that Trump, if he would last, right, and everybody was saying, "Oh no, he won't get impeached." Well, it's upon us, right? He's going to. I would predict that if he doesn't get impeached, it's going to be hell on wheels for the next 6 months for this individual. So, it's definitely, what I've said has come to pass without a doubt. And this is based on the chart of America as a Sagittarius ascendant. I've made mention of it in the past with regards to America being Sagittarius ascendant, and there's just so many different avenues that we could go down as a show, as a video, all those things. You could just show over and over and over and over and over again how America's chart is clearly a Sagittarius ascendant, and Saturn being in that ascendant in that first house. For those of you that don't know what ascendant is, Saturn has definitely called a lot of things out in regards to foreign policy, trade, Congress. I mean, in fact, they've gone back and they've been at odds. Of course, and this is nothing new. They've been at odds in the past, but there's been a demarcation between them, like a line drawn in the sand, if you will. And they've been, Congress and Senate and so forth. That's just been a fiasco in government. And so when you begin to use astrology in the mundane sense, just as we did in the last show and previous shows, astrology in the mundane sense is clearly applicable and clearly powerful and potent in its predictive abilities, so that you can see what's happening all around you in a country and other countries. So, bar none, when you read that post, you'll definitely get an eye-opening experience. So I appreciate you bringing that up, brother, because that's definitely, I got to say, I pat myself on the back for that one. That is definitely coming to pass. And the other thing is, just to add in, here's the thing, y'all. If we were using tropical astrology, and let's say America was based on a tropical astrological ascendant, Capricorn would be the ascendant. And Saturn would be in Capricorn, according to tropical astrology. So the country will probably do very well at this time. It wouldn't have all of these issues with regards to trade wars and impeachments and foreign issues with Mexico, as I stated, right? And of course, we've had issues, had a Mexican-American war. That's nothing new. But I'm saying these are serious, highlighted issues, right? When it comes to our relationship with these different entities and these different areas of governance. So, bar none, you can see it, right? You can see it. So, I just say that, if you use tropical, we would be in a very powerful time. America would be in a stabilized environment. We wouldn't be talking about recessions necessarily. We wouldn't be talking about trade wars or impeachments, none of those things. So, and also I use, of course, the southern node K2 in the first house as well. But, Saturn is enough. Sometimes just that planet alone will bring heavy, heavy consequences with its transit in any house, in any sign.
Indeed. Yeah. And that's that's interesting to bring up, that if we were using tropical astrology, we'll be looking at a totally different picture.
Yeah.
And and that's really, that's the seriousness of it. Because in ancient times, like we touched on it in our very first episode, an astrologer was like a cabinet position,
Mm-hmm.
in leadership. Whoever was in charge at that time, astrologer was right there with them, advising, a part of that advisory board. And in modern times, it's just been kind of, watered down and demoted into something else. But, this is the true power of astrology, being able to see what's coming,
Yeah. And the funny thing about it is that you really, it's called occult knowledge for a reason. People think occult is like, and it's like the word cult. Occult is not the same as belonging to or participating with or operating with a cult. It sounds similar, OCCULT, and then the word cult. Cult is part of that word, but occult, OCCULT, the word itself, it just means hidden. It just means hidden. It just means something that's not readily apparent to you, but it is readily apparent to those that look beyond the veil of common knowledge. And so those powers that be, I would guarantee you, if they're wise, they have a backdoor astrologer somewhere. They have somebody that they call upon to make these. In fact, Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy Reagan, was ridiculed, right? For making astrology a major part of how she influenced Ronnie Baby's his decisions. But we must remember, the country itself is founded based on Masonic tenets and Masonry. Well, if you ever read the book called Morals and Dogma, there's a whole chapter. It's the 24th degree, called the Night of the Brazen Serpent. In that chapter, Albert Pike, the author, a 33rd and a 3rd degree Mason, a 33rd degree Mason rather, clearly states that astrology is a fundamental part of Masonic lore and knowledge. And he also states that sidereal astrology is the real astrology. And this is in the 1800s. So you take into consideration that the founders of the United States are bar none astrologers or deal in the realm of astrology. Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. People say Thomas Jefferson wasn't a Mason. Best believe he was. He just wasn't a proclaimed Mason. John Adams. All these people are astrologers. Masons. And so Masons acknowledge the power of astrology. Of the country itself, the people that were founding it, used occult knowledge, hidden knowledge, to found the country. So, you have to wonder at some point, did the torch get passed on and hidden by hidden means, and it's just unspoken, and it's literally um, hidden so that you wouldn't have the same powers that they have. The book I mentioned, The Illusion of Choice, right? Someone founded this country based on some things that we really don't understand with regards to how things work. Every 8 years, Venus has a specific cycle, right? So, you just you just have to take note and say, maybe this stuff is hidden because they don't want us to use it in our everyday life and begin to make proper decisions and see how they're influencing things, behind smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, indeed. And I think even beyond not wanting people to know, I think they've just created an environment to where people don't want to, take the necessary steps to know,
True.
and stuff.
True.
Like, it's just kind of created an environment of that. So they're concerned about other things and not that. They don't have, feel like they don't have time to, dive into that because everybody's, chasing a dollar, trying to, trying to make ends meet, trying to, take care of basic needs and stuff like that.
No doubt.
I mean, and it's interesting too. I mean, not a little off subject. I was in Haiti a few years back, and they were I spent most of my time like in the country, in the rural areas of Haiti, and when I came back, everybody was asking me like, "Yo, is it mass poverty and stuff like that out there?" And I was like, "No, not really. I mean, like in Port-au-Prince, which is the capital, you see a little bit of that, but in the country, everybody was good. I mean, like, they didn't have money, right? But I mean, most people had food, clothes, and shelter. And for the most part, people were working, but they could, kind of kick back a little bit, what I mean? Be at leisure a little bit or whatnot." So then people look at me crazy and say, "Look, if I was homeless, I'd rather be in Haiti than here." Right?
No doubt.
Because at the very least, I could probably, it's a better chance to have some food, clothes, and shelter without being on the corner haggling all day, compared to how kind of the environment is set here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Or whatnot.
Yeah, they create illusions all day. And people believe people believe what they hear. And I've always been told, believe nothing of what you hear, and only half of what you see. And tropical astrology is, bar none, right there in hand in sync with believe half of what you see, because you're not even seeing, you're not even looking, you're actually looking at something else. And so you have to look deeper. You have to look, you have to, like you said, you have to be there. You have to be in that space to say, wait a minute, you know what? That stuff they put out there is not even half true. So, that just shows without a doubt that this knowledge, knowledge itself is experiential, right?
Yeah.
When I take you out and I say, okay, you can't explain away something that's in your face. You can explain it away when we're not looking. But if I say, here, look at this and explain to me why, you say it's one thing, but I'm looking at something else. And that's when the fudgery comes in.
The fudgery. You might need to make that a cosmic jargon post.
That's fudgery. That's when you start trying to blend and cut and paste and add and subtract stuff that it's not there. It's right in your face.
Yeah.
So when we use this, I mean, I could go on and on and on about how we could use Trump's chart, who we're about to discuss here very shortly, He'd be a Virgo ascendant.
He's not.
I don't know about you, but
No.
it doesn't work. It just doesn't even work. It doesn't work. It's fudgery. You know what I mean? You're sitting there, he's a Virgo ascendant, and they try to say, well, no, he's really a Cancer ascendant and sidereal, so he's really Leo ascendant and tropical fudgery. But then you're gonna move Mars to Virgo. And it's like, no, man, this stuff is, it's like his Mars is in Leo in the ascendant. Right there. Ask him about his mama. Ask him about his mama. You can look at Moon and Scorpio all day. Ask him if his daddy was rich.
In the fourth house.
In the fourth house. Conjunct Rahu.
Ketu.
Ketu, excuse me. You look at the sun. Is his daddy rich? Sun is in Taurus. In the 10th house. In power. With money. Taurus. So, I mean, like, come on, man. It's just people, it just, like I said, man, people believe what they hear and they don't even test what they see. So it's the nature of the universe, right? But those of us that know, we know, and you can't even, then you start pulling stuff down. You can use chart after chart after chart. There's a guy out there named Victor Cara. I've seen him. He's a master fudgerist. Master fudgerist.
That's a t-shirt.
Master.
Fudgery.
Yeah. He did Albert Einstein's chart, man. Come on, y'all. It's just crazy. Albert Einstein is clearly Gemini ascendant. He's got issues with his education early on, second house issues. I mean, it's just, 10th house has got, I believe, 4 planets in there. He's got Jupiter in Capricorn. I mean, it's Jupiter in Aquarius in the 9th. I mean, Moon is in Scorpio in the 6th. I mean, it just, his whole chart. Mars is in exaltation in the 8th. He's the guy that does massive amounts of research. I mean, his brain functions on a whole nother level. They've even taken Einstein's brain out of his dome.
Yep.
To research this man's brain. And they found some surprising things. Well, if you look at the chart and the ascendant lord, where it is, it shows that this man's brain, his head, first house, first lord, is in the 10th house. You know what I mean? So it's just, like, it gets far reaching when these things become, and the thing about Victor Carr, Ernest Wilhelm, I think Ryan Kurzak, and I think another one, Michael Reed, that's another one. That's like the 4 major people. Those are really only ones I've heard. I think I've heard a few others, but for the most part, they say that the Indians were wrong. These dark-skinned idiots didn't know what they were doing. And they just kind of made a mistake, and the Greeks were right. Oh, come on, man. The fudgery gets deep, man. It really does. It goes to the point where they really begin to believe themselves superior to people that have been doing this far longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's amazing how, and I'm not saying that, I mean, I would propose that they're doing it based on a subliminal or a subconscious racial superiority. But, if I take you outside and look up, you can try to tell me what you want. And then, we might be in the 5th dimension and, it's not what we appeared, whatever you could say.
Yeah.
I can see it with my own 2 naked eyes. And if I pull a telescope out, it's even worse. So, I mean, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it just is amazing how people go at deep lengths to, blur the lines. But, like I tell people all the time, once I get the right coordinates, the right time, right date, right space, there's nothing you really can hide. Nothing you really can hide.
Indeed.
But let's get into Mr. Trump. We'll jump on off into him for a little bit. And this is the fall from power for Mr. Trump. This is really a phenomenal event to watch, family, because you really can begin to see how the predictive power of astrology is so superior to, I mean, it's an oracle unto itself. There's different oracle systems. Astrology is an oracle, and it gives you the predictive power to see how things unfold before it's time. And the number 13 is directly connected to Saturn.
Yep.
And Saturn is the hour hand on the clock. Here's the hour hand. When we say what time is it, you have a minute hand. The minute hand would be like Jupiter, right? Because Jupiter takes 12 years, 11.86 years, and we round it to 12, right? To make a full transit or circuit around the sun through all the constellations and all the zodiac signs. Well, Saturn takes 28, really 29 years, right? Almost 30 to make a full transit around the sun. So Jupiter would be like the hour hand, but Jupiter would like the minute hand, but Saturn is definitely what hour it is, what time it is.
Yeah.
And so, I predict, right, and have predicted that the hour hand, the hour upon us is, Mr. Donald J. Trump is about to be removed from office. Now, here's the thing. Bill Clinton was impeached too. He was impeached. If you look at his record, it says impeachment, but he served his full term. Right. So, when we say impeachment, a lot of people think Nixon type impeachment, right? Where he was removed from office and Lyndon B. Johnson, took over. But no, impeachment in the more recent times, it's just a blemish on your record. It's like a bad mark on your report card. But they don't necessarily remove you from power. Then you got to understand we're coming up on an election within the next almost a year from now, right?
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, Trump, being impeached won't change the tone of the country unless they impeach him swiftly, right? And this whole fiasco and committee, it's going to take some time to really go through and get the records, the phone records, the transcripts, and all that kind of stuff. It's going to take time. It's not going to be swift. With Lyndon B. Johnson, with Nixon, it was very swift, right? And we lived in a different time, right? We lived in a very different era. We were at war. The Vietnam War was around us at that time, and so civil rights was around at that time. Very unstable country during that period of time. So, rightfully so, America quickly removed Nixon. In fact, had they not, it probably would have been some serious revolting, because at that time, people did revolt.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's scared, People are scared to do that. Like, the powers that be, man, have got a foothold on the people. They got a foot on neck squad for real. People are scared to revolt. People are scared to go against the powers that be. So, and the technology is changing such that if you mention anything on your phone, Siri is always listening.
Yeah.
Your computer is always listening. Your TV listens. Now we have so-called smart TVs, smartphones. Your car, people driving their cars, and all these things. These devices are tuned in to the government. I'm sure they might be listening now. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But but for all intents and purposes, revolts are controlled, and in fact, they're even created to create control, right? There was a few years back, a big movement. What's the name of that movement? They were sitting in on different stuff. I can't remember the name of it. It fizzled out. It disappeared. Right.
Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah. That disappeared. What happened to that? Right. But they do have revolts around the world you never hear about. The yellow coats in France. You don't hear about that. That's not major news here. It's major news on the internet if you listen and watch. But yeah, these things are controlled, right? So, at that time, impeachment, you couldn't control the powers. The powers that be couldn't control people like they do now. So when we see an impeachment now, it's not going to be, if it is, it would be very surprising, but it won't be an impeachment where I would predict the person or Donald Trump will be removed from power. He just would get a bad mark on his record and wouldn't be allowed back to play.
Yeah.
Right. Which will then also create a whole new cascade of events, and that another individual for the Republican Party is up for selection, not election, but for selection, the selection process. Then these things are orchestrated. They've been knowing what Trump has been doing. They've been knowing the powers that be. They're not stupid. Right? They have money upon money to watch these things and push buttons and pull strings. People say, "Oh, well, Trump's got money, so he wasn't." No, this stuff has all been orchestrated. All this stuff has been pre-planned, preordained, pre-chosen. That's why politics is politricks, right?
Yeah.
It's not real, right? It's a illusion. It's a what do you call it? A reality TV show, right?
Yeah.
At best. So, but we can talk about the reality TV show because guess what? Even the reality TV show has to answer to a higher power. And so, good old Trump is in his Jupiter Dasha period, right? He's in a Jupiter-Saturn Dasha period, ironically, right? And, that Jupiter-Saturn Dasha period, right, is calling forth good old Saturn to play into the equation, right, of how this thing is playing out. And so, with that, when you see primarily the Jupiter period, Jupiter is not all good for everybody and it's not all good all the time. It's a period, depending on the houses that it rules, the placement of the chart, the sign is placed in, the house is placed. If it's retrograde, then his house, in his chart, it rules the 5th and the 8th house. And the 8th house has power over the 5th when it comes to Leo ascendant. So 8th house is change, transformation, and sudden events.
Yeah.
Right. Here we go. Right. Now, here's the funny thing, right? Everything comes in 2s, sometimes 3s, sometimes 4s, depending on how you look at it. But at least we know things come in 2s. Well, the 5th house, which is what Jupiter rules in a Leo ascendant for Trump, the 5th house, right, is, if you count from the 10th house, now the 10th house is the house of power. It's the height. It's the 10th house is the house over all of us, right? It's directly above, right? It represents the height of power, right? Well, if you count from the 10th house to the 5th house, and remember, the 5th house, and some of you may or may not know, is called a trinal house. Trinal houses are the houses that are the support for a chart, right? 1, 5, and 9, right? Particularly 5 and 9. So the 5th house and the 9th house are supposed to be houses that are beneficial, that supposedly can do no harm, right? But, as I said, things come in 2s. So if you count from the 10th house, and this is a technique called Bhavat Bhavam, and we use it to literally see within the matrix of a chart. So one house has 12 other meanings, right? Minimally, right? Not just that house. So the 5th house, counting from the 10th house, is the 8th house away from the 10th. So the 8th house is a house that deals with transformation, sudden events, falls, if you will. So not only is Jupiter ruling the 8th house the actual 8th house of his chart, it's also ruling the 5th house, which literally means fall from power. Literally. Right? So sudden events, right? And through fall from power, right? That's how you would read that dasha in general terms. Jupiter rules, again, the 8th house, which is transformation, right? And it also rules the 5th house, which is the 8th from the 10th. So that means literally this man's timing period, the whole 16 years of a Jupiter Dasha period, is going to be him learning the transformation of how it feels and how it moves when he's removed from power.
Yeah.
Right. So we got to look at Jupiter and its transit. Actually, Jupiter is placed in his 2nd house retrograde at 24 degrees Virgo. Right. Virgo is not a great sign for Jupiter. It's the actual opposite sign that it rules. Well, it's in the opposite sign from where it rules, right? Pisces is the opposite sign from Virgo. So it's already at a loss of power in Virgo, right? So again, showing that this particular period of time is going to be one that is not going to be so palatable and height oriented, right? Because Jupiter is in a position that is compromised in his chart.
Yeah.
Right. So that's point one. We can see Jupiter Dasha, right? And now we add into the equation Saturn, right? Saturn is in good old Trump's 12th house, right on the cusp at 0 degrees, almost in the 11th. So you could almost say it's almost 4 houses away, but it's technically 3 houses away. So it creates what's called a square or a sextile in astrological terms. Sextile's not so bad, but squares are not so good. So it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of process. It's kind of half and half with that Jupiter Saturn, and Saturn is what's called the Bhukti or the subdasha, the second. It's what modifies the major dasha. Period.
Yeah.
So Saturn, right? Jupiter, Saturn, and Saturn is in Cancer. Again, not placed so well, right? And guess what? The 12th house, where Saturn is actually at 0 degrees, is a house of loss.
Yeah.
It's the house of loss. So we can show transformation through a fall from power, right? Right? And at the same time, Saturn showing, right, that this period is going to teach him the lessons of letting go. Right? The 12th house is the house of foreign powers as well. Foreign power. This is where he's getting caught up, y'all. Foreign issues, not domestic, foreign. So
come on, man.
It's perfectly organized, and this is happening before your very eyes. Now, I haven't even mentioned anything other than just the dasha periods. The dasha periods kind of provide the tone of what's happening in a person's life or in a nation's life too. I haven't even gone I'm not going to mention the United States of America because I've already made the prediction in the article on my Facebook page. And you can go back to October 12th. You'll see it. It's pretty lengthy.
We'll share it.
In fact, we'll share it. There you go.
Definitely.
Definitely. So it's there. I've already covered that base. I'm covering an individual's base to reiterate what was covered in the countries. And so Jupiter right now, as we speak. Now, when we look at a chart, we're going to say, okay, well, here's the dasha period. We know he's being transformed through a loss of power by foreign entities, or a relationship with foreign entities, and he's having to let go. He's having some loss. Self-undoing is also the 12th house. This man did it himself, right? To himself, right? So Jupiter, because we're going to look at the Dasha Lord, and you look at the Dasha Lord in light of the transits as it's moving. So the Lord that's ruling the Dasha or the life chapter, Dashas are life chapters. You know, there's the chapter of life that you're in. Everybody has a different chapter in each, you know, your whole chart is your book of life, right? Where your book of life has different chapters. This chapter is the fall from power, amongst other things, right? But nonetheless, right? It's Jupiter is in Sagittarius. Excuse me, Jupiter is in Scorpio right now, right? And so Jupiter, in relation to the natal chart, right? It's in a sextile position, but very soon, within the by the end, by the end of the year, right? It's going to move out of Scorpio, right, into Sagittarius. Now, here's the thing: natal, his transiting Jupiter is conjunct K2, which is the planet of sudden, unexpected events. I mean, it literally is the planet of losing your head, things that are going haywire, right? So Jupiter, which rules the Dasha, is going to line up in a square position, and at the same time, it's at the point at which it's transiting or conjuncting K2 in his fourth house. So literally things are going haywire in this Jupiter Dasha period. This is how you begin to kind of merge all of it together to get a consensus of what's going on. We call it confluence in a chart. And you can only read something to manifest if you have at least 3 factors to manifest it. Because a shape only takes place when there's 3 points, which is which is called a triangle, right? Yeah. That's what confluence means. 3 or more points where something begins to take shape. 1 point, no. 2 points, no. 3 points, there's something there. There's a pattern, right? So, and that's just life, right? Anything that happens in 3s, there's a pattern. Something's manifesting. They say things happen in 3s. Well, astrology is no different. So we look at it. There's 3s, and we're gonna go further than 3, right? Right, but there's something happening. So Jupiter is literally right in Scorpio, right, transiting his 4th house, conjunct his natal K2. His natal southern node. Things are going haywire in his heart, in his peace of mind. That it's no longer, it's not there. He's making a front of this, but trust me, that man is like, man, I've got issues. He's not sleeping well at night. Trust me, right? So this is another point, right? So now we've got all these things leading up to a Jupiter, which is the Dasha Lord, conjunct his natal K2. And it's also conjunct a debilitated moon, right? Things are going haywire in his life. And the moon rules the 12th house, which is loss, right? So here's, again, more themes, more add-ins, more layers to this manifestation of an impeachment, moving deeper into that, right? Now we're going to talk about Saturn, which is the sublord of the Bukti, right? So where's Saturn? It's in Sagittarius. Sidereally, all of this is sidereally speaking, right? It's in Sagittarius. Well, guess what? It's in the 5th house. It's in the 5th house. So again, 8 from the 10th is the 5th. So Saturn is calling for the fall from power right before your eyes. And Saturn is squared his natal Jupiter. Squared means, you know what squared means? Squared means you're cornered in. You know, a square is a corner.
Yeah.
Right? Opposition and squared are the 2 challenging, along with what's called a quincunx. That's a whole nother topic, right? A 6-8 position, 150 to 210 degrees square, 210 degrees positioning, right? But because this stuff is geometry too. But I'm sorry, not 150 degrees. I apologize, folks. I'll come back with the right numbers on that. But a 6-8 position where the planet is in 6 houses or 8 houses away, which is called a quincunx. However, in light of what's going on, Saturn is literally at 19 degrees Sagittarius. His Jupiter is natally at 24 degrees. So within 5 degrees, it's going to have an exact square. In fact, it's squaring it right now. We consider it a square within, I would say 5 degrees. Some people say 3. I say 5. So between 19 degrees and 24 degrees is 5 degrees, right? Math, right? So it's literally approaching the exact square degree. So when that happens, here coming up in the next couple of months, you're going to see even more troubles coming deeper, more, he's going to be cornered in. That's what a square does. It corners you in. It forces you into a position, right? Now, it's going to move. It's moving into the fifth. It's into the 5th house. It's going to move right on out. And in January, right around January 18th, it'll be 29 degrees Sagittarius. It's going to be moving right into right into Capricorn. It's going to be in direct opposition to his natal Saturn at 0 degrees.
Yeah.
Cancer. So between now and February, watch how it becomes tighter and tighter, and that square pops after the 24th degree. And then after the pop happens, then it's going to become right into opposition to his natal Saturn. That means it's going to be trouble in the Trump Tower. Right? That opposition of Saturn on Saturn is going to create a pressure point. And then after that pressure point, pressure has to be released. So that's when I would foresee that the true inquisition will happen with regards to this whole impeachment process. They will have enough to go off of to either make a decision to move forward or to do something where he has some type of penalty against him.
Yeah.
Now, adding in further, now we just touched on the Jupiter, Saturn, the planets that are actually the dasha and the Lord of the dasha, the Lord of the life chapter, and then the other sub chapter that's within that chapter. So we've got that covered. I haven't even thrown other things in, which is going to even add in further. So Rahu is conjuncting Mercury in his natal chart. His Mercury's at 15 degrees. Rahu's at 19 degrees. Rahu moves backwards into a chart, so it's going to also approach the 11th house. And Ketu is simultaneously in the 5th house of the house of fall. And it's going to move backward into his 4th house at some point within the next year, and then begin to conjunct his moon and natal Ketu. So it's going to have a nodal return, is what they call it, right? And nodal returns are shifts in consciousness. They're portals. They're windows to new realities in a person's life, good or bad. So, and I would say on the negative side, because he's already got a debilitated moon, right, sitting right with that K2 or that southern node in his 4th house. So as this begins to approach those particular points in time, you're going to begin to see this thing get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And you'll see Trump move right on out the way. Even if he finishes his term, Trump will be a thing of the past. His power will have completely been vanquished. Right? That's what you're seeing in essence. And so I add into that this man has what's called a Kalsarpa yoga. Now, it is technically, and you know what Kalsarpa yogas do, right? They raise you to heights and they drop you to the ground from a skyscraper. And he's in Trump. He owns Trump Tower, right? Skyscraper. So I mean, like literally, I mean figuratively speaking, really. This man has been raised to a height no one thought he could get to become president, and he did. Right? He did. I even
Yeah.
doubt. I'm like, really? You know what I mean? But remember, these people are. Go
You
ahead,
know,
brother. Give me a cut you.
go ahead. Finish that
These
thought.
people are
I'll bring it
selected.
up.
I mean, you can clearly see this is a selection process for Donald Trump, to be in office. You got to wonder sometimes and question the system that you're living in, as if it's like people really believe in politics. And I'm like, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. This is not something you are going to be able to influence. And people say local elections might be a little different, but the major power horses in this country, they're selected, not elected.
What I was gonna say, that imagery, it's like, that's what like a hawk and eagles do, right? They'll like pick up their prey, fly them up real high in the air, and then drop them, and then go eat
Wow.
them.
Wow. Yeah, that's killer right there. And the thing is, Saturn, you know, it waits, man. It waits. It waits and it waits and it waits and it waits. And it's like, you know what? You think the Grim Reaper ain't coming for you. None of us believe we're going to die. We truly don't. Those of us that are living, to have the ability to foresee your death is a very stark reality. Most people don't see it. We believe we do. Now, I've even done my own death time and date. I know when I'm going to check out, and I'm quite comfortable with it. I'm not going to advise anyone to do it, but it's a stark reality that the human mind doesn't accept. The other thing that we don't accept is our usually our fall from a very high position of authority. We don't want to see it, especially for individuals that are more like Trump, Leo
Yeah,
ascendant, boisterous, doesn't want to listen to anybody, stubborn to a fault. Mars is in the ascendant, Moon is in Scorpio, squared Mars with conjunct the southern node. I mean, it's insane. So this man literally is about to receive a shock, right? So that he can wake up. It's called a wake-up call. We all know as Osirians what those are, right? And the planet of wake-up calls, well, it's Saturn, right? Wake up from the illusion that you're in power. Wake up from the illusion that you run things. You only run things to a point. The Supreme Being runs all things. And you think you can backdoor things to a 12th house through talking to foreign powers, and it's not going to be exposed. Yeah. That's why it says Saturn waits and waits and waits. And he had a lot of opportunity, a lot of things that could possibly come to have removed him, and they didn't. But now the gig is up, and you can see Saturn, you can see K2, you can see them moving into position to create the pop. And when that pop comes, you'll see next year the results of this Saturn completing the process during his opposition in the sixth house, in his sixth house in Capricorn. So, this is how you begin to see a fall from power. This is how you begin to truly see, because a call Sarpa Yoga is when all the planets are considered in the dragon's belly, in the mouth of the dragon. And so he has that in his chart, and it creates, this man has been in debt, got out of debt, and the rich's debt is completely different from our debt. Their debt is never truly debt, but he's just ruined companies. It's amazing that this Kal Sarpa Yoga is really producing this in his life. But this is a time when the world will be able to see the true power of what these yogas and these ancient sciences, or the power that they have, to really to forecast and to see, things that happen in the world at large. So that's those factors on my hand. There's more, right? We won't be here forever to get into all of the nuances of each one of these particular placements. But for the most part, this is why you're seeing this particular event happen.
Indeed. And I just wanted to add for the listeners, just to put in context, another interesting character that has that same, Kalsapra yoga is Aleister Crowley.
And the beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. People have that, to say
They do.
the least.
They're very interesting, to say the least. They are very interesting. And it's just, it goes back to the fact that this stuff is a science and an art, and there's things that, if I looked at it from the moon's position, that's a whole nother conversation that we are not going to get into now, but we look at it from the ascendant, because the physical world is the ascendant for an individual. Things that are tangible, touchable, tasteable, smellable, realizable. But the moon is also another ascendant, and I can guarantee you, if we looked at it from that, we would also see it in a deeper, more emotional, and more heartfelt way of how he's interpreting this reality, right? Because the Leo ascendant is able to put on a facade so that we can only see, but to know how he feels about it, it's a whole nother level. And trust me, it's there as well, because Saturn is really putting the pressure on. And that moon being in Scorpio, right? Well, in Scorpio, the 9th house is the house of the supreme being. Well, in Scorpio, Cancer is the 9th house from the supreme. So Saturn is there. So trust me, you think this man does not have some type of relationship with a higher power or forces that be? He's asking himself some very prudent questions on why me? Why now? Why do I got to go through this? Right?
Yeah.
So, that's a whole nother level, a whole nother show at some point we may be able to do is, reading things from the moon, not just from the ascendant, because the moon itself is how we feel, how we filter reality, how we interpret something that might be going on around us, even though the ascendant is also a level of interpretation as well.
Indeed, man. Yeah. Yes. It's heavy duty right there. Heavy duty. So what I wanted to ask, just off of your perspective, how do you think that's going to impact the country, or even the world at large, that whole downfall for that Trump is on schedule to experience?
Good question. Different strokes for different folks. What's always good for the goose ain't always good for the gander. And some folks will be, you'll have your Trump supporters. They'll always have individuals that will, rally up and try to say, for all intents and purposes, for whatever reason, oh, it's not true, or, this is the powers are trying to, snuff out, truth and justice, and you're gonna have people that are gonna rally and be rejoiceful and thankful, that this is going to shift. But remember we talked about what happens when the recession comes and the vacuum that might be created in this next election. It's good to have an opponent that you're used to, because then you know how to fight.
Yeah.
But when you don't have an opponent that you're used to, or you don't even know who the opponent is, that creates a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. Nature abhors empty. There's no such thing as empty space, right? Everything has something in it. Every space has something, even though you can't perceive it. So, it's like, seriously, it's going to change the tone of the election. It's going to change the tone of the finance world. it's going to change the tone of a lot of different things with regards to the pulse of the nation. And that's that Saturn K2 in the ascendant. So you're going to see, and like I said, I predict when 2021 comes around, because remember, this thing still has to fizzle out. It has to pan out. They have to decide what the whole process of this. It's not going to be overnight. Even when it pops, it's still, Saturn still moves slow, right? So it's still going to take time to manifest and wind up. But when it's done, when the elections come, he won't even be a potential anything in part of the conversation as a candidate, let alone be president if they decide to allow him to continue in office, which they may, which will allow the financial market and things to kind of stay stable and quote, because once you have a shift of powers like that, Mike Pence coming in office, I mean, if he did get in office, it would be for a blip. But what you'll find is that Mike Pence might be the next individual on the Republican card, so that now he has a leg in and he can play chess, not checkers. So it's gonna be it's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts. But for the most part, when the process is ensued and it's been done, you're gonna have another split in the nation. But you'll be surprised. It may be more people that are thankful than not that this whole thing is kind of over with and that we're moving on to another page, because Saturn will be in Capricorn, right? And Jupiter will have moved into Sagittarius. And that Jupiter in the Sagittarius, it will be a natal opposition in Jupiter's, in America's chart. But Saturn in Sagittarius also is like a renewal because it's in its own sign. So the nation will have a whole new approach. And we are in a Pluto return, which takes 248 years. Now, in mundane astrology, that works. Natal astrology doesn't work. Sorry, y'all. All the natal, Pluto, Neptune, doesn't work, right? Doesn't work. It has to have a very, very tight degree. I'm talking about literally, they have to have literal, I'm going to say less than 1 degree arc, right? 1 degree, we call it an orb, right? But it has to be less than 1 degree for me to really work.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Pluto and Neptune. Uranus is a little different. Uranus is kind of a mix, but we can do that in another class, talking about the external, well, not class, but another podcast, talk about the external planets and how they might work in mundane astrology or natal.
Yeah.
So, but, there's definitely change at hand. And Pluto takes 21 years to shift a sign, right? So, give or take, it's a slow moving. It's so slow. It's way slower than Saturn. So the changes of this country are definitely in hand. But it's major because it's a large operation, but it's also still very slow and sometimes not so readily perceptible. But there is change coming, and Jupiter in the ascendant, Saturn in the second, definitely is going to be a new hand, to be played in America. So that's what I really see as the major impacts of this. Is one, if he stays in office, it'll stabilize the financial market somewhat. But then, when the new president elect has been selected, then you're going to have a whole different purview on the financial market as well. And then also, the world at large will feel some relief as well, because they really, the whole trade war with China, that's him. That's basically Trump. So these things will shift, but when you shift the guard, so to speak, that's when things come in. That's when you try to attack. That's when you try to implement change, because then it's at its weakest. So it's going to be quite an interesting next 12 months, let's say that.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, yeah, I think we, pretty much sliced that one up. Well, now you
No.
got any other points that you wanted to hit on that one?
Nah, man, I'm straight. I think that one's straight as an arrow. Just check out on the Cosmic Convo, the prediction. Read it. Take a look. Go back, look at news articles. That's how you begin to vet the prediction. Is look at news articles. Put in trade complications in USA, and you'll see it all kinds of stuff pop up. Seventh house is trade, right? Seventh house is business. Seventh house is foreign policy. There's four planets in America's seventh house. This country is about big business, so you can see those things, right? Look up issues or problems with America, with USA, Mexico relations for the past 3 years, or 2 years. You'll see, boom, right? Article after article after article after article. In fact, we even had a big fiasco. I mean, look at things like this. Trump tried to build a wall. Never got it done, right? But that was the talk of the town, right? That was the pulse of the nation, is that there's a wall. Well, remember recently when we had this whole event where all these people from, I don't know, was it not Panama, another country. I don't know how to say Honduras, but it was another country where all these Latin Americans or native, for the most part, people that were close, they came through Mexico and they were trying to get into the border. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's Jupiter in the 12th house. Boom. Right? The ascended Lord in the 12th house with issues with, backyard problems, foreign powers, foreign issues. So, all this stuff you'll see, right? You'll see it all, right? And so that's why you can use Google, you can, search news articles and then see if the prediction has come true. And like I said, I was even sitting there twiddling my thumbs. I'm like, come on, y'all. This stuff is gonna pop off. When's the impeachment coming? Here it is. So, the article mentions that as well. So yeah, definitely take a look at the article. Vet it through news articles and the current times, and see for yourself.
Indeed. So yeah, man. I think people are really gonna enjoy this one, especially in light of it being happening right now in front of us. One thing again, I want to remind everybody that this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. Follow us both. At Shechem for Calipurusha with Brother Ra, and at Push It Forward on Instagram. And, check the podcast out on YouTube and all the major platforms. And, send us your suggestions. You got, a particular topic or something in mind that you want to hear something about, let us know, and we'll definitely, consider it, indeed. Brother Ra, you got anything that you want to talk about or plug before we wrap it up?
No, if you have any requests or anything like that, you can definitely hit me up on Shechem Ra at IG or Shechem Ra on Facebook. But you can also hit me up at Calipurusha Astrology at gmail.com. That's an email address that's available for the people. If you just want to shoot me out an email, ask me a question, shoot me information that might be popping up if you're trying to learn a technique or something like that, or learn a yoga or anything like that. It's kind of better to hit me up on Gmail through that Calipurusha Astrology at Gmail email, because you can email stuff a little bit better there versus IG and versus Facebook. You can actually send me, files. We can exchange data that way. So that's just another way for the people to get in contact with me. Again, it's Calipurusha Astrology at gmail.com.
Indeed. So, so we thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe on whichever podcast platform you listen to your podcast on. Listen to this podcast on, and we'll be here right here same time next week. All right, We're out. Peace.
Peace.